Please be seated. Good morning. Mr. Mills at home? It's got a 915 Average Shaw. No dialogue? No email, no contact with the court?
I have nothing.
Nothing. Are you handling
I have two of the 915s. I have Shaw and Poole.
any contact with Mr. Mills?
I haven't heard from him. I don't know if you saw, there was an email late last week about, from the probation department about,
Yeah, yep, I'm aware of that.
yeah, I haven't seen or heard from either of them.
We don't have Taverine Shaw present in the courtroom, do we? Shaw? All right, we're gonna have to email Mr. Mills, let him know the case was on for 9:15 if he's a no-show. And we're gonna have to put it on right away. Maybe the next day or two, his client didn't show up for the PSI. And he's not here today, so. We have the verdict sheet on Nelson. Great, counselors, anything I need to know before we bring out Ms. Nelson and go on record?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, all right, let's bring Ms. Nelson out.
She's gonna give us, she has it.
Okay, we'll go on record. This is People v. Persha Nelson. E-124-9. Case is scheduled for sentence here today. Ms. Nelson is present. She is with counsel, Mr. Sacco. Both Mr. Nobles and Mr. Monte are here on behalf of the District Attorney's Office. Before we do proceed with sentencing, the court is going to hand out a written decision and order in the case. An original copy will go to the clerk. Courtesy copy to Ms. Nelson. Officer, so 2 to Mr. Sacco, 1 to the district attorneys. Defense counsel did submit the CPL 330 motion. People did file an affirmation in response. Court did review the defense motion. The people's response has issued a written decision and order denying the 330 motion and request that the verdict be set aside or in the alternative that a hearing be conducted. And with regard to the decision and order, you can of course have an exception to that, Mr. Sacco. A PSI was prepared in this case, so we are in a position to go forward with sentence. The sentence follows what was a trial verdict of guilty with regard to 3 separate counts, jury trial, in which the jury did return a verdict of guilty, murder.
Let that sink in. Second-degree murder, manslaughter, endangering a child. That means the jury didn't see this as a tragic mistake. They saw conscious disregard for life. In legal terms, depraved indifference isn't negligence. It's extreme recklessness so severe it borders on intent. So now the only question left is this: how much is a baby's life worth in years? Because today isn't about guilt anymore. It's about punishment.
Murder in the second degree, manslaughter in the second degree, and endangering the welfare of a child. Both sides received copies of the PSI.
Yes, Your Honor.
Any recommended changes, Mr. Sacco?
No, sir.
And from the district attorney?
No, Your Honor.
And any victim who wishes to speak? I do know that the district attorney submitted a letter that the court received. Do we have any victim who wishes to speak, or will there be any statement made on behalf of the victim in the case?
Judge, just on behalf of Halo's paternal grandmother, she did prepare a statement. She's not going to read in open court, but she asked us to read it. So Mr. Nobles is going to do that.
I believe I have a copy. Does it starts with Ever?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Court has a copy, so whenever you're ready, Mr. Nobles.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is the victim impact statement of Courtney Kitt, K-E-I-T, on behalf of Halo's family. It reads, ever since the day Ken called me and asked me if we, the family, would like to say something at sentencing, I automatically said yes, of course, not knowing how hard this was going to be. I've been struggling for so many reasons. Most importantly, I'm just now coming to terms with the fact that Halo is now in heaven and her mother is the reason why. I also have to come to terms with the fact that one day Prince is going to want to know what happened. How did he lose his mom and sister all at once? Tell me, what do I say to him? Only his mother has the answer to that question. Only she can answer that. But she won't be there when the time comes. Christina talked about Persia like she knew her, just by the videos detailing the night in question. She saw the truth, and I appreciate commitment, time, and effort everyone put into this case. Persia came into our lives and changed it so much. She gave us so much joy and pain. I cannot believe this girl, who lived in my house and felt the love we have as a family, would do something like this. When I first heard the Amber Alert, I said to myself, there goes Persia looking for attention. Or was she trying to say we kidnapped her? Because on that same night, Kayla was having the worst night of her life. Her brother was having one of the best nights of his life. Prince loves dinosaurs. And it just so happened that we were in Schenectady at the dinosaur exhibit. We had no clue Halo was right around the corner in a bad situation. Persia was trying to make my son look like a monster. My son gave up everything for her. She claimed he was beating on her. I wish maybe he would have knocked some sense into her head, because she didn't have to do anything. He took care of everything. She only worked long enough throughout the year to get an income tax check at the end of the year. I could go on for days about Persia. I would like to apologize to the Schenectady Police Department, who had to endure this horrible tragedy. It pains me, the memory you all carry of that night, only to have to replay it back in your testimony a year later and relive it all over again. I've had mental anguish since I heard some of these testimonies. Every time I watch a movie and someone dies with their eyes open, I think of Halo and the pain and stress they said she went through before finally taking her last breath. That's why her big blue eyes were the first thing they saw when looking down and over in the hole. Halo was too stressed out, in pain, to even close her eyes. I always told Persia, never let my grandkids stress you out. Whenever you feel like you need a break, just go. You can leave them with us, no questions asked. But this time, it was all about people. You used those children as pawns. I cannot believe we are here today. I want to once again apologize for the pain and disruption Persia caused on the lives of so many people. I pray Persia finds peace in the decisions she made that night. I pray we find peace as a family in helping Prince get through this difficult and painful situation you brought upon our lives. I pray my grandson finds peace about his sister. His untimely departure, his times
This is
go on.
why victim impact statements matter. They don't change the verdict, but they change the emotional gravity in the room. Notice something powerful here. The grandmother isn't just grieving Halo. She's grieving Prince, the brother who has to grow up hearing playground whispers about his mother. And here's the uncomfortable question. When a child kills a child's future, who carries the heaviest sentence? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is
times go on. The kids in school keep telling him different stories about his mother hurting his sister. Do you know the hurt I feel every time my grandson comes home upset or crying because some little kid told him his mom killed his sister? Those are the days my heart aches the most.
Ms. Tremonti, people wish to be heard at all prior to sentence?
Yes, please. Judge, this defendant now stands before you having been convicted of the depraved indifference murder of Halo Grant, an almost 11-month-old baby, who, as all children do, loved her mother, who was totally dependent upon her mother, and whose life was taken by her mom. Halo was killed by the person who should have been her first protector and her safest place. But instead, this defendant abandoned her, left her to suffer and die, and prevented the many people who tried to save her from doing that by pretending she didn't know where she was. And those people, they wanted to save her. So many people did. This defendant's conscious decisions that night, her heinous and despicable acts, and her uncaring state of mind, they warrant severe consequences. You heard the facts that came out at the almost 3-week-long trial. How could her actions, what she did to that little baby, call for anything less than the maximum sentence? But before I ask you to consider certain facts about this case and this defendant when imposing sentence, I want to briefly address some of the points that may come up when the defense has an opportunity to speak. The fact that she has no criminal history, possibly even revisit the idea that on the night this happened, she was cold or stressed, maybe both. These things that the defense may bring up, they are in no way mitigating factors in a case where she killed her baby in this fashion. She's a convicted murderer of her 11-month-old daughter. Abandoned a vulnerable baby in a black hole where she froze to death and walked away. This woman should not get credit for that being her only conviction. I mean, the idea that she should get any kind of credit for this being her first conviction should hold just about as much weight as saying she did this because she was cold or stressed from being cold while her baby froze to death. You know, there are some things that you do that are just so awful that they alone define you. They alone matter. Your history does not and should not matter. And that is the case here. And as far as the weather that was talked about so much at trial, the cold stress, the jury rejected those things as an excuse or as a mitigation for her criminal conduct, and so should you. What matters here today is what she did on March 9th and 10th of 2024. This defendant made a series of choices, conscious choices, reckless choices, and depraved choices. And her sentence should reflect that and the devastating results of those choices. Halo didn't have a say here. She didn't have any choice. She didn't choose her mother, didn't choose to be out in the cold and the rain that night or to be abandoned in a place where no one could find her. An innocent little baby, not even able to walk, barely able to talk, and totally dependent on her mother. Totally dependent on her killer. You know, I said this at trial and it's worth saying again. None of this was even about Halo, not for this defendant. This wasn't some punishment to her. This was about the defendant's life. It was all about her. Her anger, her struggles, her need to rid herself of burdens, her responsibilities, her life she looked at as unfair, and her needing to ultimately control and manipulate. And she had options. Halo had a father who wanted her, and a family, as you heard, who would have taken her. Her father was trying to get custody of her, but she was going to control where Halo went. And it wasn't into the warm arms of a loving family who wanted her, but into a cold pit where she left her alone. She had options that night. She didn't need to be out there with her baby, but that was the choice she made. Because after getting into an argument at a party, she became irate. Her boyfriend's mother tried to stop her from leaving with the baby, offered her a place to stay that night. Her response, she cursed at her, slammed the door in her face, and left with her 11-month-old, taking her from a warm house surrounded by people into the dark, into the cold, into the rain, with no supplies, no coat, just that blanket that was later found in the mud. And despite the rain and the cold and all of the terrible conditions you heard about during this trial, she takes that baby off of a lit street and into the darkness of those woods, down an embankment that's basically a cliff, climbed a fence onto the GE campus, and then continued to walk toward the light. But Halo doesn't make it to the light. Because at the edge of the darkness, she came upon that structure, a box. 350 feet from that lit building, from safety, a box covering an 8-foot hole in the ground. She stood in front of it and leaned in, and what she was carrying goes away. Her baby goes away, and her life got easier. In sentencing this defendant, I asked you to look at the video of that box and where it was one more time. And this is Exhibit 28 at trial that we're going to play. just a minute of it. These two structures shown together, they are the picture of the grab. This is an area where you throw something away, where you dispose of something. And that's where you go to be saved. And that's it, Judge. Those two images. It's the demarcation point between shadow and light, cold and warm, death and life. This defendant chose death.
That right there is the prosecution's entire sentencing theory in one sentence. They're framing this as a choice between light and darkness, literally and legally. And here's what's important. Sentencing isn't just about what happened. It's about what mindset the court believes existed in that moment. If the judge agrees this was a conscious choice, then mercy becomes very, very hard to
chose
justify.
death for her daughter and life for herself. In her conduct, the heinous nature of it, her depravity, it's not just her decision to put her in there, where she was likely to die and so unlikely to be found in there. It's her decision to leave, to walk away, to abandon there, and to walk off to safety for herself. She doesn't just walk away. She goes to a warm, lit-up building to go rest. Out of the elements, made her way through a garage, past several fire alarms, made her way to a break room with a working phone, and did not call for help, didn't pull a fire alarm, went into a chair and took a rest. And then, when shortly after she's found, there was only one person who could have saved that baby. She could have told the police and paramedics where she was. She could have given her a fighting chance at that time. But what did she do? She claims she doesn't remember. Doesn't know where. No idea where her baby is. Ensuring at that moment her baby would die in that hole in order to save herself. To not get in any trouble. To make herself a victim, the mother of a missing child. Just pretended to not know where she was. The person who put her there took away her last chance to be saved. You know, she may be sorry now, she may be upset now. That's what mattered, that moment, when she could have saved her, and she saved herself. And she didn't care. You heard her. You heard about her in the hospital. You saw her in the hospital. You saw her in the interview room. She went to the hospital. The nurse is trying to build a rapport with her so they can try to get information as to where the baby was. Time was of the essence. And she's going on about a shower, about her life being unfair, about her fight with Dante, all before mentioning anything about her baby at the hospital. As one of the detectives said at trial, the whole city was looking for her baby. And you heard from many of those people, people who didn't even know Halo, people who were devastated. You saw their reaction, you saw how emotional it was. As the nurse who treated Halo said, you don't stop. You go through all of the motions, you try everything you can. As Detective Canonis said at trial, a baby was missing. It was like my own baby was missing. If I had to stay up 4 days, I would have stayed up 4 days. Compare and contrast that with what you saw in the interview room in the early morning hours of March 10th as people were desperately searching for her missing baby, supposedly. Missing baby. What did you hear from this defendant? I want to go lay down. I'm tired. I'm in pain. I'm cold. Call me when you find my damn baby. What is my sitting here going to do? When her baby was out there alone in the dark and frozen, and she's complaining about being cold. Absolutely uncaring, no remorse, no empathy, and at some points downright obnoxious and hostile to the people trying to find and save her baby. Why? Because she wasn't the mother of a missing child. She was the killer of that child, and she knew it. She's living in a fantasy world if she thinks people didn't see through her act of pretending not to know where her own baby was. A mother who doesn't know where their baby is, who honestly doesn't know and knew it was in a life-threatening situation, would not be sitting in a police station saying, I need to go lay down, bro. I'm in pain. I'm tired. I'm cold. I'm impatient. That's not how the mother of a missing child acts. Not to mention, people don't just forget where they put their kid. That's not something that happens. She knew where she was. And how else do we know that she knew where she was? Because she spent 28 minutes with her. 28 minutes at that spot before she walked away. She didn't just drop the baby in the hole. She stayed there for 28 minutes after, as Halo cried herself to death. And she did nothing during those 28 minutes. She didn't run away to get help. She didn't jump down and throw the baby out of the hole. And the worst part is, she didn't change her mind. She had 28 minutes to change her course.
28 minutes. In court, time is everything. Because legally, 28 minutes destroys the argument of impulse. Impulse is seconds. Panic is minutes. But nearly half an hour? That's what prosecutors call opportunity to reconsider. And the longer that clock runs, the heavier the sentence usually gets. Do you think 28 minutes proves intent or confusion? Let me know below.
To change her course, to try to get help, even pretend it was an accident. Whatever she had to do. You know, this is not a case of killing where there was a quick decision made and then it was too late. She could have saved her. She stayed for 28 minutes and did nothing. I'm sure just waiting for her cries and screams. The cries and screams of a freezing, terrified baby to stop so no one could hear her when she walked away. You know, oftentimes when somebody dies, you hear people say, well, at least they didn't suffer. You know, even if there's a tragic death, people take comfort in knowing a loved one didn't suffer. Unfortunately for Halo, the reality is she suffered. She spent her final moments in a dark, cold hole alone. But her mother was right there above her, right there, hearing her suffer, hearing her cry, cries for help that she never answered. You know, when I hear the statement read by Mr. Nobles that Halo's grandmother prepared, what strikes me, what has always struck me about this case is just how many other people were also affected by her conduct. Additional victims of hers. Her son, Prince, who must not only deal with the loss of his little sister, but the eventual knowledge that it was his mother who killed her. Halo's father, Amar, family, his family, who wanted her, who wanted to take care of her, and who would have taken care of her, as they do with her brother. The hundreds of people who searched for Halo, the medical professionals, the nurses, doctors, and paramedics who tried to save her, and of course the 5 men that you heard from during the trial who found Halo's frozen body, her lifeless body in that morning. The 5 officers who saw firsthand and who will have to deal with the memory of it. I'll remind you once more of what they found. A baby floating face up in water, partially stuck under a pipe. Her eyes open, staring straight up at them. They were blue. They didn't see her moving. They didn't see any signs of life coming from her. In their words, it was devastating. Police officers, first responders, trained to deal with dangerous, difficult, and traumatic situations, devastated by what she did, by what they saw. A group of people who all came together, who didn't know Halo before this day, but who desperately tried to save her. A group of people who cared more about her than her own mother did on that day. A little baby, deprived of the chance to really ever have a life, to even have a first birthday. But Halo will be remembered by all of these people, by all of us. Her killer will be forgotten. This case is about a series of choices that this defendant made, and her decision to abandon her baby daughter, to hide her, and to leave her to die. Judge, it's now you who gets to make the final decision in this case. And we ask that you impose the maximum sentence of 25 years to life for her depraved murder of baby Halo.
Court's going to hand out the DNA order at this time. As soon as we get the DNA order signed, I will give Mr. Sacco an opportunity to be heard, as well as Ms. Nelson. The order will be filed with the clerk of the court. Mr. Sacco, defense wishes to be heard prior to sentence.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Judge, I should also note that my client does have a statement to make when I'm done. I know you'll ask her, but I want to let you know. Judge, this has been, as the court knows, as the jurors know, as the prosecution knows, this has been a very, very difficult case for everyone involved. There's no winners here. There's no, it's a tragedy that you can't even quantify. But the question today is, what should happen with Persia Nelson, and what should her sentence be? And the reason the juries and prosecutors and defense lawyers don't sentence defendants is because it takes a certain skill, it takes a certain impartiality, it takes a certain ability to step back and look at all the facts and circumstances of a case. Now, I do believe there's mitigation here. In the mitigation, the typical mitigation in a case is age of the defendant. Persia Nelson is fairly young. Criminal history. Is this person a repeat offender? Is this a person that has come before the court many times and doesn't get it? Well, Persia Nelson does have a lack of criminal history. Is Persia Nelson a danger to the community? And the court will have to decide that on their own, but Persia Nelson with treatment and with some sort of rehabilitation likely would not be a danger to the community. Another factor is the possibility of rehabilitation. Now you're going to hear from Persia Nelson in a few minutes, and you can gauge that for yourself, what her mindset is. And another factor, of course, is remorse, And of course, no one has ever heard from Persia Nelson, and until today, you'll hear from her. If you have not heard from Persia Nelson, you've seen videos of the night in question, I understand that, but no court, no prosecutor has heard from Persia Nelson since this case started, and you will hear from her today. And I believe you will be able to take that into consideration along with all these factors. Now, Mr. Monte went through, a number of things that happened during the case, and I'm certainly not going to rehash the case that we were here for 3 weeks for. But, sitting at this table, reviewing the facts of the case and the evidence of the case, I don't agree that my client is an evil person that did not care for the baby, that wanted to kill the baby, that did all these horrible things. And the reason I say that is because of the facts of the case. Persia Nelson, she was drunk, 0.18 DAC. She leaves a party. She walks down the street. Now, if it was her intention to harm this baby, do all these horrible things, exhibit this evil, evil intent, there were many opportunities to do that. She could have left the baby in the park. She could have thrown the baby down the hill. She could have left the baby by the fence. Anywhere in that swamp, if that was her goal. But the facts of the case demonstrate that she wanted to go towards these lights. So I just have a hard time believing about this evil intent that she wanted to do this. This was her plan. It just flies in the face of the facts of the case. We will never know what happened at the shed that you just saw on the video screen. No one will ever know what the facts are surrounding what happened in that shed. You can guess. You can guess all day long. And you can come up with some decent hypotheses, probably. But no one will ever know what occurred there that night. And there's two ways to look at that. Either Persia Nelson honestly doesn't know what happened there, which if you have a 0.18 DAC and you're very cold and it's pouring rain and you can't see, is a possibility. It is not a zero possibility that that could not be the truth. Or she's lying and she remembers everything that happened at that shed. Those are the two possibilities. And contrary to the prosecution's assertions, they don't know. They don't know if she remembers that or not. So I want you to take that into account, Your Honor. Nothing will bring Halo back. Nothing will repair Halo's family's heartache. Nothing will help Halo's little brother. Nothing will. But the question here is, what is a just punishment for Persia Nelson? I can tell you, and you'll hear from her in a minute, she is remorseful. I can tell you that she accepts responsibility. I can tell you that it's genuine, contrary to what everyone thinks. So, Judge, after you hear from Ms. Nelson and after you consider my arguments and everything you've seen during this case about who Ms. Nelson is, I ask you to not sentence her as you would for some of the evil, heinous defendants that you come before you. That some cases in Schenectady County have been men who kill nuns 25 to life. People that do horrible things to just evil, grotesque intent. That's not what we have here. That's not what we have here. We have, it could be criminal, it could not be criminal, but it is a tragedy, a tragic accident. And I think there is a distinction between that upper level of grotesque, evil conduct and what you have in this case. So I'm asking you, Judge, for the minimum sentence, which is still an incredibly lengthy sentence, with life on the end of it. That would be 15 years to life in prison. They've asked for 25 years to life, and I've asked for 15 years to life. A 10-year difference. Both life sentences. Not asking for an apology, or I'm not asking for incredible leniency. I'm asking for some sort of reasonableness for a 24-year-old woman under the circumstances that you saw in this case. She did not set out to harm this baby. In fact, she had the baby for 10 months prior to this happening. She took care of the baby. And I think the only evidence in the case is that she did, and she was good with the baby. Up until this point. I believe that's the only evidence in the case. So Judge, as you consider your sentence, my position is clear. I'm asking for a minimum sentence. And at this point, I would like to allow my client a chance to read her statement.
Whenever she's ready.
You want us to stand?
Either way.
Hello. My name is Persia Nelson, and I would like to start by truly and sincerely apologizing to my son, Prince, our children's father, Amar Brayton, to Amar's family as well as my family. I know all of you may have or have strong feelings and opinions about me and the tragic accident I have caused. But truly, I want all of you to know I respect and understand your feelings, and you're very much entitled to them. I also want to apologize for all the infliction and turmoil I've caused in everyone's lives, including everyone who worked and or heard about this case. Especially to the patrol officers, Jonathan Goebel and Michael Zupp. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the hurt I inflicted on you, even though I'm sorry. I am also thankful that you found my daughter Ava. So I thank you and everyone that worked very hard and helped. Everyone's hard work didn't go unnoticed.
This is one of the most critical moments in any sentencing. Remorse. Judges look for three things: accountability, ownership, and clarity. Notice she said she didn't intentionally mean harm. That word, intentionally, matters, because if the court believes she's still minimizing, that apology won't reduce a single year. Now watch closely. The judge is about to tell us exactly how he interpreted that statement.
And once again, I'm sorry. Thank you. Oh. Most importantly, I need to apologize to my daughter, Halo. That's not what happened. I'm sorry I let my self-centered ways cause harm to you. I'm sorry I wasn't being responsible. I'm sorry I wasn't being a better mother for you. Every day, I wish it was me and not my daughter truthfully. I'm not saying that for pity. I'm just saying how I feel. Yes, I shouldn't have been smoking and drinking when I needed to be responsible for my daughter. I still haven't accepted my daughter's death, but I have accepted accountability for my actions that helped cause her death. I never intentionally meant to cause my baby girl harm. And I will feel the weight of my ignorance and stupidity in my actions for the rest of my life. There is no medication or remedy that will change how I feel. I know I've ruined many lives, and I am immensely sorry. I'm sorry to everyone.
The courts had an opportunity to hear from both sides. From the defendant, has also reviewed the PSI. Court also had an opportunity to preside over the jury trial in this case, and has thus heard the testimony and had an opportunity to view and listen to all of the physical evidence, including the audio and video. Ms. Nelson, you can cry all you want, but I know you're smart enough to know what you got coming in this case, right?
Yes.
I mean, we get all kinds of killings in this courthouse, in this courtroom. Negligent killings, reckless killings, intentional, depraved, indifference, murder. And then we got this, baby murder. All right, jury came back with baby murder. So, you're getting maxed in this case.
There it is. Before he even formally announces it, he signals the maximum. And when a judge says, "This is not a tragic accident," that's the death of the defense's entire mitigation argument. In sentencing language, that means no reduction, no benefit of doubt, no sympathy discount. This courtroom just shifted from debate to finality.
There's no doubt about that. All right, this is not a tragic accident. Absolutely not. So I heard a lot of sorries. I didn't hear "I'm sorry for murdering my baby." You'll be saying that one day. About 25 years, when you're before the parole board, I bet you'll be saying it then. Because you're going to want to get out. Sorry, remorseful, crying then too. I bet. Yeah, but just remember, they're gonna hear and read exactly what the jury heard in this case. And that's the way you murdered baby Halo. All right, that video and the pathologist's testimony describing, so we do know what happened. We do know what happened. All right, you put baby Halo in an 8-foot pitch black, freezing, water on the bottom, hole in the ground. And as the pathologist described, she froze to death from hypothermia. You know, he described some victims of hypothermia. You know, there's almost a period of peaceful acceptance, you know. Some even get undressed, go to sleep. But that's not what baby Halo did. She was absolutely terrified. Right, she was crying. She was crying the whole time. Crying for you. And you were there. That's what the video showed. You were there. She knew it. So I don't, this ain't a left her. You waited. All right, up until the very end. That's why she died with her eyes open. Terrified, pitch black, waiting for you, keeping her eyes open. She never closed them. So, well, when it comes to that evidence, that testimony, "25 years from now with parole," well, I wouldn't get my hopes up. First counts murder in the second degree. The court does impose an indeterminate minimum 25 to a maximum life period of imprisonment. Manslaughter in the second degree, the court imposes an indeterminate maximum 8 1/3 to 25. Is that
5 to 15, man 2.
5 to 15, indeterminate, man 2, not man 1. Murder in the second degree and the manslaughter count will run concurrent to one another. Endangering the welfare of a child, 1 year local. It's a Class A misdemeanor. It will automatically run concurrent and merge into the state sentences. And that is the sentence and judgment of the court, the PSI, which does recommend a sentence consistent with the court's sentence will be filed with the clerk. Defendant will be remanded back to the custody of the sheriff, turned over to docs, serve out her sentence according to law.